be complete. Like whatever requirements you're writing, it should be, there should be enough information to proceed to the next stage. So it should be complete, it should be consistent, like, so whatever, it is not basically conflicting with the other requirement. So the consistency should be there. So for example, if in one of the screens, right, like if in one of the requirement for one of the screen, you are using the data format as date format as DDMMYY, so you should make sure that you consistently use that specific date format in other screens as well, or in other requirements as well. If I mean, like, you should maintain the consistency. This is one of the example. Similarly, you have to do for everything, like, it should be it should be consistent. Like, we should enter different information or different kind of details for the same different information for the same type in other requirements. So everything should be consistent. It should be concise. The requirement contains no extraneous or unnecessary content. So it should have, like, the required information only. It should be feasible, obviously, technically and operationally, okay, to do within existing constraints. So for example, our project is basically, the deadline is for or the the timelines for the project is 6 months. Okay, so whatever requirements we are writing, right, like, so we should make sure that we are covering all the requirements, and whatever the it fits within that specific timeline, within that specific budget, everything. And technically also it is feasible, unambiguous. So be understood only one way. They are unambiguous. So for example, no matter who reads this, okay, if a developer reads this, or tester reads it, or any other specific person reads it, they should have a common understanding on that specific requirement. And then it should be testable, it should be prioritized, it should be understandable. Yeah. These three are uh, quite straightforward. Right. So from exam point of view, again, you have to keep in mind, you have to memorize these things. Like, can maybe say, make some small you know uh, shortcuts or something. ACCC, uh, FU, TPU, whatever, like, based on your uh, convenience. But it is very important from the exam point of view. You should know, you should remember all these 9 quality characteristics. Okay. So now let's go to the elements. So first one is, okay, yeah, characteristics of requirements and design, characteristics of requirements and design quality. So as I mentioned, there are 9 characteristics what they have given. The second one is verification activity. So using these 9 characteristics, right, you should perform the verification activity on your requirements. And finally is the checklist. Okay, so in to make sure that you are not missing any specific specific characteristic, right, like from the verification process. So you need to make sure that you maintain a checklist of all the 9 characteristic, and make sure that all the requirements, like for in our example we took 100 requirements, right, like in all the 100 requirements passes through all these 9 characteristics.
So, Srijit, I was curious to know, how do you validate each requirement against these characteristics? Is it when you're drafting them itself, or after that?
Ideally after that, because see, as per Babok, the requirement should be there. So that's why, see, the inputs, right, inputs. So inputs is requirement specified and modeled. So when your requirements are ready, right, like your requirements are written, uh, uh, when they are ready, then basically you can perform verification activity on that. So this is as per Babok, okay. But in our real life, right, maybe even if you write partial of the requirements, you can go and obviously do the verification on that. But don't think from the real project perspective when we are discussing about Babok. So as per Babok, the requirements should be there, like, with you. Once the requirements are there, then you can go and verify those requirements. Clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So there are a couple of examples. I won't go to each and every example. Maybe I'll just go to the third example, which is easily understandable. So so for example, this is the example of ambiguous requirement. So if you look at the first line, right, like the first part, the system password must contain an alphabet, an uppercase letter, and a small case letter, a number, a special character. Okay. If you give this requirement to a developer, do you think you'll be able to develop or develop this specific feature or the specific requirement, right? So here, how they have written, like, the system password should be a size 8, and it will include a minimum of an alphabet in uppercase, a number of special character, like, they have given which all special character are accepted special characters, and a lowercase alphabet. Okay, so this is how, it is not ambiguous, like, it is unambiguous. It is easy to understand, like, even if I give this to anyone, right, like, they will understand, okay, what is the specific uh, allowed password, what is the specific allowed password, minimum length, and all those things, like specifications for that. So it should be 8 digit. There should be, a number, a special character, and a lower case alphabet, and which all special character, only this three special characters are accepted. Okay. So here, as in guideline, you can use requirement life cycle management tools, basically. So techniques, acceptance and evaluation criteria, item tracking, reviews, matrices, and key performance indicators. So, from the exam point of view, whenever we have less techniques, right, like, for example, less than 6 techniques, okay, that becomes a very important topic. I mean, like, you can expect a question related to technique, okay, in your exam. So this is like for the specific second task, you have to give special attention to the techniques as well. Like, maybe you need to understand, like, which all techniques are there used for this. I'm not telling about understanding how to do the technique, but which all techniques are used for this specific verification task. Here as well, all stakeholders will be involved. Right? Yeah. The third task is validate requirement. So after verification, uh, like, what we do is, we'll do the validation of the task. So as per according to Babok, right, basically validation requirement, don't confuse again this with testing as well. Like, we are not doing, it is not related to testing. So just a minute. Yeah. So yeah, the purpose is, ensure that the requirements and design align to the business requirement. Okay. Description is describes the fact that validation targets achievement of the future state, and here the inputs here again, it is similar to the our previous, verify requirements. Here the inputs is requirement specified and model. So what do you understand by this? Like, both the tasks, verify requirement and validate requirement, we have same inputs. Okay. So as per Babok, what Babok wants us to tell is, like, okay, I mean, like, when the requirements are there with us, right, we can do the verify requirement and validate requirement in parallel. Okay, it's not that we need requirement verified in, to happen first, then validate. So it's not necessary. If requirements are there, you can, do both the activities in parallel. Okay, that is what, that's why, we have similar input for both verify requirement and validate requirement. Okay, so purpose here, like, as I told you, ensure that the requirements and design. Yeah, tell me.
So what is the difference then between verification? Is it verification is
The quality
finding out,
the quality
finding
aspect.
out,
Hmm.
and then validation is to ensure that it is still valid. Is that what it is?
No. I'll explain you. I'll explain you this. So basically, what we do is, whatever requirements we have written, right? Like, we make sure that those requirements are aligned with our business needs and business requirements. It's not that I'll give you an example. Maybe that will help you understand. Okay. So as in BA, it is very common. Like whenever we are writing any requirement, right? Like, we get uh, very creative, isn't it? Like, So for example, there is a business requirement. Okay, the business requirement is, that user, is a login requirement. User should be able to log in to the application. Okay. So as an BA, when we start, writing our functional requirement, uh, what we'll do is we'll think about, whenever it's related to login. Okay, obviously we'll think about username, we'll think about password, we'll think about forget password, maybe reset password, right? These are the basic things which are there. Then we'll also think about, some additional features like sso login, like single sign on login, or sometimes like, otp, the user should be, for more security, the user should be able to log in using the otp. So we'll come up with all the requirements, like, um, so because, we get creative, right? Like, we usually, we can come up with like a user, if they enter the password 3 times wrong, then the account should get locked out. So whenever we think of a login process, it's obvious necessary, like, we always think about multiple things which can make our system more robust. Correct. Now what you have done is, you have written all the requirements. Okay, you have written, like, uh, username, password, forget password, sso, otp, everything you have written. Now what we'll do is, um, all the functional and non-functional requirement you have written, right? You will try to compare it with the business goals and business objectives we have. Okay, so but there will be some specific business requirements which are there, right? Like, okay, so as per business requirement, when we compare all these features with the business requirement related to the login, what we get to know is, okay, that particular otp feature which we wrote, right? Like, was not part of not part of the business requirement. Okay, we, as an, as an ba, as I told, we'll get creative, we'll write those requirements, but as part of the business requirement it was not there. It was nowhere mentioned that they want an otp option. But so what we'll do is, at this stage, right, you will compare all the requirements which you have, we'll map it with the business requirements and see, which all are kind of, basically which all requirements actually brings, adds value to the, to the goals and objectives. Okay, so we'll compare all those requirements, and whichever requirements are not needed, right, you will just remove this or weed off those requirements at this stage. So what is the biggest benefit that you will get by removing this requirement? Okay, so first is, like, you'll be able to meet 100% of what the client needs, right? Obviously if you add additional scope to that, there can be slippages, because, there is a limited budget, and, limited, the timelines are tight and everything, right? And you can't just add the additional requirements, right? Like, because whatever requirements you're adding, whatever things you're doing, it everything comes, there will be cost involved for everything. Everything comes with a cost of implementation, development, testing, and everything. Correct. So we have to make sure that, okay, whatever requirements are you have written, you will validate it, and, you'll make sure that it aligns with your business needs and objectives and business requirements. No additional extra information or extra requirements, you are actually just going and just like that you are developing it. Okay. So that is what we do as part of validate requirement.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So identify assumptions. Okay, obviously, as I told you, right, like, you look for the assumptions, whenever you're validating the requirements as well. I mean, like, because, if so whatever requirements we are writing, right, we do come up, we actually, have lots of assumptions, constraints, and everything. So we need to make sure that all the assumptions are being identified, right? So define measurable, evaluation criteria. So you will look into the evaluation criteria. So you may, sometime may have some evaluation criteria for all the requirements, like on what basis you believe you evaluate the success of those requirement, like, so you have to come up with that. So it can be from any perspective, like it can be from cost perspective, it can be from, the implementation perspective, it can be from the tech perspective. So basically everything depends upon what kind of requirement and what is the kind of, project you are working on. Based on that, it's bs responsibility to, you have to define the evaluation criteria for that requirement. Okay, on which you can evaluate the success of those specific requirements. Okay, and the last one is evaluate alignment with the scope. Okay, so you will check the, basically, you know the you will evaluate the alignment, like whether they deliver value, or only that, basically, whichever requirements are there, right? Like similarly, as we took our the other scenario, right? We'll make sure that those are aligning with the scope of the project. Okay. So in our example we had that OTP feature. Okay, the feature is very good, but it was not aligning with the scope, it was not aligning with the business objectives, goals, and the business requirement. So you evaluate like the same process what I told you, right? Like you evaluate all the requirements, you'll align it with the scope of the project, and accordingly you will finalize those requirements, and you will basically come up, okay, which all requirements are in scope, and which are which requirements you need to mark it as out of scope. So we have a few guidelines over here: business objectives, future state description, potential value, and solution scope. So business objectives and future state description was like, you will they will it will help you to understand the the exact scope, or the exact yeah, scope of the basically requirement, like what all things are there. You can compare it with the business objective to understand, okay, then you can basically looking at the business objectives and future state description, you can basically come up with the solution scope. You can understand, okay, what all things you need to keep in scope and out of scope. Similarly, you should also consider the potential value of the requirements during the validate requirement phase. Here we have a couple of techniques: acceptance and evaluation criteria, document analysis, financial analysis, item tracking, reviews, matrices and performance indicators, risk analysis and management. So everything you need to consider basically. As per Babok, these are the techniques you should consider when you are validating the requirements. Here as well, all the stakeholders will be involved, because similarly to the verify requirements, right, like the validate requirements as well, you can basically connect with any of the stakeholder when you are validating the requirement, to understand the basically the why that specific requirement was there, or what is I mean, like if you are have any specific query or something, you can obviously connect with any of the stakeholders. So next one is define requirement architecture. So to basically, what is a requirement architecture? To basically explain you, right, like I'll show you three images. So there are three different images basically of an specific building structure. So you'll see here, useful to customer, architects, and builders from different purposes viewpoints. So in case if I want to maybe send a image, right, to a customer basically, who is basically who wants to purchase the property, or purchase this specific this property, which the house which is shown. Yeah. So ideally, which image will I send? So I will usually send the second image, because the customer who is purchasing the property, right, he is not much aware about all the technical aspects, or the construction aspect of that. Okay, he'll basically look, okay, whether that property is looking beautiful, good. He'll just ask, okay, what is the strength and everything, but he won't go into this much detail. Okay, whereas maybe if I'm sending it to architect, right, maybe I can send first or third one. Similarly for builder as well, maybe any one of those thing, maybe I'll send it, right? Because when you're sending it to architect, right, they may most probably will send the first image, because they will look into all the red beam structure, and because they will look into the kind of the actual technical aspects of that specific thing, what they are actually building, right? So you understood, right, like basically, so here what I'm trying to say is, like, based on the based on the customer, you need to understand the customer need, and accordingly you need to come up with the viewpoints basically. I'll explain you what does that viewpoints mean in yeah. So purpose, to ensure that requirement collectively support one another to fully achieve the objectives. Okay, and a description here is describes the viewpoints and views, and the need for create it uh, for various stages. Inputs here is requirements, any stage, information management approach, and solution scope. Okay, uh, and the output here will be requirements architecture. So I'll give you an example to basically to make you understand it. So say we are basically dealing with say 2500 requirements. Okay, we are dealing with a very large project, a large transformation project basically, and there are around say 2500 requirement, and there are multiple departments, the requirements which are there, right? Like they span across multiple departments. Like I'll maybe open a word document. Give me a second. Yeah. So we have 2500 requirements. Okay, and there are multiple basically departments we are dealing with: HR, finance, admin. Okay, similar, yeah. So and this 2500 requirements, right, it contains requirement for all the different departments, right? So if you just keep all the requirements together, okay, 2500 requirement together, do you think that will be a good approach to maintain the requirement? uh, Definitely there are so many requirements, it will definitely lead to the confusion, right? So instead what we'll do is we'll create viewpoints. Okay, so for example we'll create an, say, HR viewpoint. Okay, and all the requirements related to HR, right? Like say there are 500 requirements related to HR, so 1 to 500, I'm not writing everything. So 1 to 500 requirement, we'll create a viewpoint, and we'll create a view for those 1 to 500 requirement. So as soon as you click on HR, right, you will be able to see the specific all the requirements associated to the HR. Uh, I'm like HR department. Similarly, you will create it for finance. Okay, maybe there are 1000 requirement, 501 till 1000.
So you're using any specific tool to document these requirements? You said viewpoint. So which tool are you referring to when you say viewpoint,
So
Srijit?
there is no specific tool which Babok has said. They have told that requirement architecture tools. So there are many tools which we can use, right? So usually there are many tools available in market as well. So we do. I mean, in your organization or in our real world, right? Like we use this SharePoints, Confluences, and everything, right, to maintain all the requirements. We'll create a tree structure of that. Like we'll be having the main requirement, and under that we'll be having different. So when I say requirement, it can be any information. Okay, I'm not just telling about the requirements. So here, but we are talking about requirements. So we can have I'll show you one example maybe. Yeah, yeah. So for example, this one, right? So these are the I've created a viewpoint for customer. Okay, so under customer there will be another layer as stakeholder requirement, and then we will be having functional requirement. Similarly, we will be having non-functional requirement. So this is how the view will create, so that we have that kind of proper traceability, I would say. A connection, basically traceability of connection. Like, and if you want to look at any specific information which is related to customer, you will just create on the customer viewpoint. Under that we'll be having multiple views. So if you want to view the requirement related to customer should transfer money easily, so you'll just click on that view, and then we'll ultimately get it will be the associated requirements to that fund transfer and transaction history. Yeah. From the application point of view, right, there is no specific application as such given. What Babok is telling is you can use any specific organizational standard application which your organization is using, right? You can use it. So basically, that's what I gave you an example of Confluence or SharePoint, or that the in Jira also we do maintain the not requirement. Yeah, it is like user stories and everything, epics. Then we have features, we user stories, tasks and everything. So it depends upon which specific application your organization is using. I mean, like there is no specific mention of any application in Babok. So that's what basically we do as part of this defined requirement architecture. So viewpoints are used to represent requirements from a particular perspective. It can be business process model viewpoint, actual requirements design from a viewpoint is referred to as a view. Right? Then template architecture. So as in BA, right? For example, if you are working in any specific, So if you are working in a specific organization, right, like say your organization is associated with the banking domain, so it's and they already have the requirement architecture template available with them. Okay, so as an BA, you don't need to always go and come up with a new template or something. If there are any specific template available in your organization, you can go ahead and use those templates. Okay, so for example, if you are working in retail banking project, right, so there will be a standard template which has been used, which will contain your accounts, account opening, credit card, loan. So all those kind of those from the viewpoints perspective, you can create those viewpoints, and accordingly the associated views under each viewpoints you can create. Completeness. So completeness, basically the benefit of doing this is like you it helps basically to ensure the completeness, like you can know, okay, all the requirements associated with a specific function are there or not. The backward and forward traceability, it will help you doing that. Relate and verify required relationship. So business analyst examines each relationship to ensure that the relationship satisfy the quality criteria. Relationship are defined, necessary, etc., providing by tracing of the requirement. Similarly, what I mentioned, right, like we have to define, it will help you define the relationship with each of the requirements based on the viewpoints. Like under viewpoints, we can have, as we took this information, right, so customer has this two stakeholder basically requirements, then we have this functional requirement. So that traceability is there, like it helps you to define the relationship, and it ultimately helps you to trace those requirements. Business analyst information architecture. So all the business analyst related information is also basically part of the requirement architecture. So all the information related to the entire the project, right, all the requirements, everything including the business analyst information will be structuring as part of this specific requirement architecture. So these are the viewpoints basically. So you were asking, right, like which application. So they have told that architecture management of software you can use. I mean, like which software you can use, it totally depends upon the your organization what they are using. But as I said, like there are a couple of softwares available, but in our organization also we use this Confluence and Jira only. So these are the couple of techniques basically: data modeling, functional decomposition, interviews, organizational modeling, scope modeling, workshops. There also any stakeholders will be involved. In the next task, here is define design options. So this is like what we discussed till now was the first four tasks were related to requirement analysis, and now the last two tasks are basically are related to design options. So design option according to Babok, right, like for any requirement, when you're thinking about the implementation aspect of that project, right, that basically comes under the design part. Okay, so I'll quickly read this thing and maybe I'll just give you an example. Okay. So purpose here is to define and identify the design options to help achieve the future state. Okay. Each design option represents ways to satisfy a set of requirement and exist at a lower level than the change strategy. Okay. And inputs here is basically change strategy, requirements validated and prioritized, and requirement architecture. And the ultimate output of this, what we'll be getting is design options. So as so first is define solution approach. Okay, so as I told as per Babok, when you're thinking about the design options, right, like so there are three basically approaches, only three options available before you for any project. So one is create, one is purchase, or both. So create means whatever the solution you're looking for, right, like you will develop it from the scratch. and you will build it like by yourself. Second is you'll purchase it. So for example, you have the requirements with you, you'll float an RFP. RFP or RFI, you guys are aware about that. RFP is requirement for require request for information and request for proposal, right? Basically we will float those RFPs and RFIs in the market, and we'll look for the vendors who support 100% of our requirement, right? So we'll float those RFPs and RFIs and try to understand, okay, if we want to purchase, right? Okay, do we have that specific vendors who have 100% of who basically cater to the 100% requirement which we looking for. Yeah. So that is one, that is the second option, purchase. And third one is both. So for example, if you float a RFP, okay, so just imagine that, okay, you don't have the capability to building it, okay. So I mean, like, okay, you have the capability, but you don't want to invest into the entire kind of the full project. So what you will do is you will float a RFP. You'll maybe you got a vendor who has say 90% of, he's catering to 90% of the requirement, okay. So what you will do is, okay, you will say, okay, we'll take his product, and whatever the remaining 10% of the requirements are there, right, you will build it, okay. So that will qualify for both. You are purchasing as well as you are creating some of the requirements which he is not basically in his application is not having. Okay. So when you're thinking about the solution approach, these are the three options which you have from the Babok point of view, and very important from the exam point of view as well. Second is identify improvement opportunities. So whenever you are basically looking for any design options or something, right, like, so you should always look for the improvement opportunities basically. So when you are finalizing any product or any application, you will basically consider how what all new capabilities basically it has, what is the efficiency, how it will improve your efficiency, how will it like the information availability, what is the kind of information availability it has, everything, like basically it is a basic thing, right? When we are looking for any, say for example, if you are looking for a if you want to purchase a mobile phone, right, like, you will explore multiple options from there, and you will try to based on your budget and everything, you will try to go for the best one which has kind of all the features or all the things what you are looking for. Similarly for this as well, like, whenever we are looking for a design options, right, like, we have to look for all to opportunity to basically improve the efficiency of that specific application. Requirement allocation. So once you have identified all the options, right, like, that are available before you, you will do the requirement allocation. So for example, you will be having 50 requirements, okay. Then if you're building it on your own, obviously all the 50 requirements can be met. But if you're buying from outside, say maybe as I told you, 90% of the requirements are meeting, maybe so 30 basically 40 requirements are met, but 10 requirements are not. So then you will write it down like, okay, first option, if I building, my all the 50 requirements are getting fulfilled, when I'm trying to buy it from outside, only 40 requirements are there in that specific tool. So another 10 requirement are not there. So you will definitely in that case, you will look at the 10 requirements, okay, what is the kind of importance of those 10 requirement, and if those are ultimately you will prioritize, or you will come up with, okay, you maybe discuss with the you will align it with the business requirement and everything, and you will prioritize, okay, if those 10 requirements are needed. So based on that, you will come up, or you will finalize your solution approach basically, whether you will go with create, purchase, or both. So in case that available 10 requirements are must needed, then you will keep that option in place, like, whether you should go with build or both. So purchase option will, like, so we will basically come have two options in your place, in your hand, create and both. We have one case study, so that will help you understand this, like, maybe theoretically it may be a bit, maybe a bit difficult to for you to understand, but we'll go through that case study quickly. Requirement allocation is, and then describe design options. Okay. So we will mention all the design options that you have covered in a very detailed specification. You will put all this information, and then finally, basically, based on this information, you will give the recommendations, but the recommendation is part of the next task. Okay, so we'll come to that. So what you have done is, we have, okay, you have three approaches. You have identified, the improvement opportunities over here, and then basically you have allocated the requirement, and now you have the kind of, design options with you, and you have described all the design options in a document, a specification document, which will basically present it to the stakeholders and give you recommendations. So here, design options, existing solutions. Obviously, you need to look at the existing solution requirements. um, a future state description. Requirements will, give you, okay, what all the requirements are there. Future state of description, okay, what you are basically expecting in the future. And solution scope, definitely it will, you need to understand the scope of what you're looking for.
So I was just curious
Hmm.
to know, Srijit,
Yeah.
where does the um, core concept model come into requirement analysis and design definition?
So core concept model, if you look, right, like it's a kind of, generic model, which is there, in into,
Six.
yeah, that's generic. It's a generic model, six core concepts model we have, right, like it's there in each and every task, or each and every, basically, I would say, each and every knowledge area. Okay, so they have not specifically mentioned, okay, which task, which element, which core concept model will come.
But we apply it. We have to apply it.
As in, from the elements point of view and everything, it's not, no, we don't need to apply from the exam point of view as well.
Hmm.
I mean, like, they won't specifically ask you, like, which
Okay.
core concept model or something, but you need to be sure about the core concept model which we have. Okay, so that you keep in mind. But from the specification point of view as such, I mean, like, from the knowledge area point of view, you can just read it, and you can take your educational guess when you are answering the questions. But you should be, thorough about the core concept model, as in from the generic point of view, from the,
Oh,
yeah. So don't worry about the core concept model from the, knowledge area point of view. That is fine. So these are a couple of techniques we use. Again, here, we have project manager, implementation subject matter expert, domain subject matter expert, operational support, and supplier. So here, because we are, coming up with the design options, right, we won't need all the, all the stakeholders. Implementation subject matter will, SME will help us to understand, the implementation technical part of the options. Domain SME will, obviously, he is a functional expert, business expert. He knows in and out of the domain. He'll help you. Operational support as well. Suppliers, like, you will connect with them to understand, what all things they are offering. Project manager is always there. The last task which here, we have is analyze potential value and recommend solution. So now you have jotted down all the design options which you have, right? So what will you do is, like, so based on the potential value they bring, right, like, you will recommend the solution. So the purpose here is to estimate the potential value for each design options and establish the best one for the organization. Description is, describe how to evaluate the design options and make a decision. Inputs here is potential value. Okay, you need the potential value you have, like, for each design options. You need to, like, to evaluate that, you need to have that potential value with you, and obviously the design options, because based on the design options you have, you will, and based on the potential value for each design options, you will recommend the solution. So here, analyze potential value and recommend solution. So expected benefit, potential benefit of each design option. So it can be, any benefit, like, reduce risk. Okay, monetary benefits, policy compliance, anything, like, so for each of the design options, based on your project requirement or based on the, business requirements, you need to come up with the, the potential benefit which you will be achieving for each and every design options you have come up with, right? The expected cost, estimation of the cost, like what is the expected cost for that specific each and every design option you have, like how much time, effort it will be, will require, timelines, operating cost, and any other cost which are involved, right? So you have to consider all the cost which are basically which you will be incurring for the specific design options, right? Then determine value, or overall value of each design option. Basically you will perform the cost benefit analysis, and based on the most you know uh, based on the cost benefit analysis, you will identify which is the most profitable kind of, or the cost wise, which is more beneficial design option, and based on that you will recommend one solution. Then finally, what we'll do is you will come up with all these things. You will come up with the expected benefits, understand the cost, determine the value, do the cost benefit analysis, and finally you will assess the design options and recommend a solution. You will evaluate design option based on multiple, like all the above elements, characteristics, and you will finally recommend a this thing solution, like which design option you should which will be more beneficial, most beneficial for the for the specific requirement for the specific project. So after considering this, you'll recommend a solution, and that's it, like
So does this chapter RADD, is it the core of like business analysis? Because we do know there is the other um, five knowledge areas,
Hmm.
but this one is the core. Like if we are really good at this, essentially 50% of BA analysis is done.
uh Not really. I mean, like, yeah, this is obviously from the exam point of view as well, it is very important. So you need to understand it. So there is an importance, or importance of each and every knowledge area. So especially, so for example, if you look at the second knowledge area, right, we have elicitation and collaboration. Okay. So from the real world point of view, that is also very important, because unless and until you will go and I mean, like you'll have a discussion with stakeholders, clients, and everything, you won't get the actual business requirements which you have, right? Like, so that is also very important. So unless and until that information we have, you do, elicitation results you have, you can't actually perform this requirement analysis and design definition tasks as per Babok. Yeah, but it is
Okay.
very important. But what actually here we are doing is we are actually writing the requirements, and we are basically recommending the design options to the stakeholders, like which design option. But in real world, I'm not sure how many of, as an BA, right, how many of us get actually an opportunity to come up with an their recommended design options, like whether we should purchase, or whether we should buy, uh, build it or on our own, or go with the both option. So
Isn't
but
that isn't that more like of a finance related analysis? Because build versus buy is always is we take
yeah,
help of finance people, right? For
yeah,
that.
we take help of finance people, we take help of technical architects and everything to understand the technical feasibility as well, right? Do we have that kind of feasibility to build, right? So there are many things which are involved, and finally, yeah, it's not just a BA, but we do take help of multiple people, and like finally, but yeah, we recommend a solution. I mean, like not everyone gets the opportunity to work into that, but yeah, that is how. It's not BS, like BA alone can't do it, but yeah, it's a kind of team work. So we have business objectives, current state description, risk analysis results, and future state description, as well as solution scope, as in guidelines and tools. We have this many techniques basically, which can be used. So almost all these stakeholders are involved over here, because the recommend solution, right, all the stakeholders are interested, like what are we recommending, so everyone wants to know the recommendation. Yeah. So this is the case study. I'll quickly run through this case study. Right. Youth fashion apparel brand has a retail store in all the major cities, catering to the young fashion conscious population. The sales team wants to monitor and track the sales trend at every store, as well as for regions. So here we have requirements, and here the design options are there basically. So for each and every requirement, they have come up with the design options. So sales data, store wise, region wise, as well as country wise. So dashboard prototype develop internally or get a pre-designed dashboard. Okay, so here they have given two options. Similarly for all the other, like facility to store sort data in all the reports. By build a ready grid to support the functionality. Facility to filter data in all the reports. By builder ready grid to support the functionality, like again basically your requirements are there, and we are basically giving the design options, coming up with design options, and we will be based on this design option, we will be evaluating the cost, the benefits, we'll be doing the cost benefit analysis, and we'll be recommending the solutions. So that's it from the this knowledge area, requirement analysis and design definition. See, from understanding point of view, I think so. It's, well, it's easy to understand. Because this is actually, especially for requirement related to the requirement analysis, right? We do in our real world, yeah. But from the exam point of view, it is very important. So I'll recommend everyone who are basically trying, looking for CCB or CBAP exam, right? I'll recommend them to go through the content, of the Babok very carefully. Each and line, every line you should read, and accordingly, it will help you basically to clear this exam. And if you score more than 80% in this specific knowledge area, right, it will help you clear the exam. I mean, like, it has a very high weightage, right? Like, so it will be very very beneficial. It's not that only this knowledge area you have to score in each and every knowledge area, but yeah, obviously, as it has high weightage, it will help you clear the exam. Yeah. Any questions, guys?
When you're looking at a answering a test or answering the test actually,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, normally where does more time go, in case study based questions or in questions in which options are very confusing or very close to each other in terms
It
of the context?
See, case study based question, as per my understanding, right? How I approached it, or I what I feel is case study based questions are easy, okay, but it's not always straightforward answer questions they will ask, okay. So unless and until you are clear about all the all the concepts of the Babok, all the inputs, elements, outputs, all the inputs, tasks, and outputs, right? Everything there it should be there in your mind always. So if I mean, like, it should be on top of your mind. Like if someone asks about specific verify requirements, right? So you should know what is the input, what is the output, what are the kind of associated tasks with that. If that level of preparation you have, right, and if you are going through uh, I'm like, that level of preparation will, if you have, it will help you, answer the questions. So there is no straightforward answer to your question, like what, which kind of questions are easy. Obviously case studies are there, right? Like there will be many uh, mathematical related questions in that, like very easy math. Okay, so those are easy to score. But as I told you, not all questions are straightforward. Your concepts, the Babok related concepts should be clear. Okay, then only you'll be able to understand the questions. I understand the questions and answer the correct ones. Okay, so for that it will come with practice only, because you have to go through the question banks, the mock exams which we have. You have to go through all those things, and you have to trace back. So for one good thing with Techcanvass is, like, means whenever you are attempting any specific question bank related questions, right? Like, so if you attempt any specific question, even if it is right or wrong, you get a reasoning for that. Okay, like which specific section that specific question belongs to, then you can trace back to the Babok. You can maybe highlight those specific lines and everything, and you can try to understand the concepts. So if you'll do that, right, it will with practice, it will help you, it will make your concepts more clear, and you will be able to, I mean, like, that will help you in answering the questions easily. It will come with practice, not, I mean, not just by attending the classes and everything. It will obviously help you, make the concepts clear. But to understand like, it will help you to understand the concept, but to be thorough with that concept, you have to Practice, practice, practice. That is the only thing what I can recommend. And read the
Okay.
Babok. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you so much.
yeah,
Sujit, one last question.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm giving this exam this end of January. I
Okay.
am already preparing, right? So techniques, there are a lot of techniques in RADD.
Hmm.
I can say that without techniques, unless you go through those techniques, it is
Hmm.
very difficult to answer RADD answer questions.
Hmm.
You are either doing mock or final exams.
Hmm.
So how do I, because these techniques are common in a lot of other knowledge areas as well, and they are common in a few other things. How will I understand if a particular brainstorming question is about RADD and not any other knowledge area? Because RLCM is also very close to
I read
RADD.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that gets a little confusing. What is this question asking about? Because there is answer about RLCM also, there is an answer about RADD also. So how will I identify? That becomes a little difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Techniques and RADD, how do you combine them?
Yeah. So what one suggestion what I usually like what I followed is so techniques, right? Like I didn't focus on all the kind of techniques which are really for all the tasks. Instead, what I did is I focus on the techniques. So each and every task, whichever task has less than six techniques, right? I focused on those tasks. I kept those techniques in mind, and as well as during your training, right? Your trainer might have told you, right? Like, so there are 50 techniques. Obviously, it's not possible for you to understand. I mean, like remember all the 50 techniques, correct? He might have
Yes.
give like told you like, which all techniques you can focus on. But from the RADD point of view, right? So there are so this one.
So just to make it a little easier, you said that there are 36 questions that might come from RADD,
Ah,
30% in CBAP.
right,
So
right.
how much will be technique oriented and how much will be RADD? RADD?
So I would say I think so 20 to 30%, I mean, like will be related to more than 20% will be related to techniques.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. But that's what I told you, right? Like you can just focus it from the exam point of view. Right now you can't go and actually, I mean, like you can obviously go and practice the technique related mock questions. Yeah. But
Yes,
to have an kind of focused approach, right? Like you can go and basically look for those tasks which has less than six techniques.
yes.
Right, so that will basically help you narrow down your scope and focus on that kind of, but don't worry, man. Like you exam, when you go into the exam, right? Like I mean, like I think so if you have gone through the mock exams and the sample questions, I think so you should be good enough. But focus on those specific tasks which has less than six technique, that will help you maybe.
So just before RADD and RLCM, I had to go through the techniques because only then RLCM and RADD questions become little because they're a mix of techniques and
Yeah,
tasks. Yeah.
correct. Yeah,
So thanks, Sujit. That
yeah,
was really helpful.
yeah. Thank you. No problem. Okay. Okay, then, if there are no further questions, we can wind up. Thank you, guys, for joining today's session. Uh, Rupak, you wanna stop the recording?
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, Srijit.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Srijit,
Yeah,
can you stop the screen sharing?
yeah, sure, sure. I'll stop the screen sharing. Okay. Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you everyone for joining